Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for being here tonight. Just a couple of things before we get started. I'm Rick Stidham, co-chair with Josie Barajas Menchana.
My name is Marchena.
Marchena, I'm sorry. And Dana and Hugo is at a baseball game right now. So tonight's meeting is an informational meeting. There's some frequently asked questions that were put out and about in the seats. We're going to start off by asking a few of those to just kind of get things going, and then we'll turn it over to you folks. Whenever you have a question, please stand up, be respectful of the person that's speaking, and we'll try to keep you up. Most of these have been an hour and 15 minutes.
So like he said, my name is Josie Marchena. I am a Barajas. She's a Barajas too. But before we get to the questions, we actually have Larry Zimmerman here, and he wants to open us up with a quick testimony on the importance of this levy for him. Larry?
Good evening. All right, so my public speaking is horrible. I probably won't make much eye contact with you like they taught us in school, but yeah, so first off, I just want to say thank you for everybody coming out. It's very encouraging to myself as a community member, as a business owner, and as a board member to see the support that we're getting. So again, my strength is not public speaking, so if I'm not making the eye contact, I apologize. I asked my wife to look over my notes, and because she's the level head in my family, and she added some notes, but the very main thing she said was just keep it classy. So I'm going to do my best to keep it classy here. So a little bit about myself and why I ran for the board. People ask me, your kids are grown, they're out of school. Why are you doing this? And I just wanted you to know, I want to be a voice for the kids. That's first and foremost. That's exactly why I did this. And the other is because I'm concerned for the state of our district and districts in the country, because of unwanted agendas that are being forced upon our districts and our communities. So that's part of the reason why I want. I sat in an informational meeting probably about 2 years ago for Rotary, and I just sat and I listened to these guys talk and tell us where we're at, and I was floored. So I sat there for about an hour and 10 minutes, and when they were done talking, the first thing I did is I grabbed my jaw off the floor, and I walked up to Dave and Troy and I said, what can I do to help? And this is before I was on the board, anything. What can I do to help? And the main thing that I took from that is, I didn't ask why we were in trouble. At that point, and at this point, it's really irrelevant why we're in trouble. I don't mean that, I'm not talking down, I'm not saying what's happened is good, bad, or indifferent, but at this point it doesn't, it's almost a not why is this, why are we here, how do we get out of here? How do we get out of this problem and where do we go from here? And that's exactly why I ran for the board. I'm a lifelong resident of Wauseon. I'm a 1988 graduate. I have 4 boys that have all graduated from Wauseon, and you know what, I have grandkids. And one of them is going to be a kindergartner this next school year. So those are main reasons. Those are big topics for me. Back in the day when I went to school, which was a long time ago, we used to have what Troy and Dave have actually talked about in some of these informational meetings. We had industrial arts. We had drafting and designing, metal shop. Those were all classes that gave students that were not the college-bound students, not the military-bound students. They gave students an avenue of, hey, this is what you can do. This is something that can teach you and get you ready for the workforce. And one of the classes that I was in, and I thought about this last meeting I was here, it was DECA. And that was about free enterprise, teaching kids how to manage businesses, how to operate a business, and maybe someday own a business. And I was really encouraged because sitting in the last meeting, and she's here again, Heather, I know her as Heather Barnes, Heather Pueller, we were in DECA together. And there was some other people that were in DECA as well. And Heather just told me, I brought up the name of Melissa Miller, and I don't even know if that's her last name today, but it is. We were in DECA together. We went to state in Columbus. We placed in state. We got to go to Salt Lake City, Utah, and we placed in the national, we went to the national convention out there, which was awesome. And again, what was that teaching us? How to own a business, how to operate a business, how to manage a business. She owns a business today. I own a business today. Melissa owns a business today because of what our schools, the foundation that they gave us. They built something for us. So this school, this community means a lot to me. This gets a little personal here, and I sat down the other day, and mind you, I have a Facebook page with my wife, but I don't have it on my phone. I want really nothing to do with Facebook because it's so negative, it's so toxic. If you don't agree with Josie, you don't agree with somebody else, they're gonna tear you apart, and they're gonna make you feel this big. And as owning a business, I made a lot of decisions. I'm not perfect, but people tear me up every day. It takes 5 minutes to get 300 negative comments because something you may have said. And I never went on there and I never bashed anybody. I never stuck up for myself. I just let it go. And finally one day I said, you know what, I'm done with Facebook. I don't want nothing to do with it. And it lowered my blood pressure. My doctor was happy with me. So, but I saw a post, and let me see here, where am I at? Somebody called out the school board saying that we need to get off our butts. Literally, this is what they said. We need to get off our butts and do our jobs. Well, I'm new to this. I'm learning it, and I'm going to the conventions. I'm going to training with these guys because I want to learn everything I can. Ask Amy Fisher, and she'll tell you she wants me to be quiet because I ask questions. I ask them all the time because I want to know. But our board in the past has contacted our state legislators. They have sat down with our senators and said, hey, these are our issues. The board is 5 people. There's how many people in here? 50, 60, 70 people. If we're not happy as a community with where the state is giving us funding, we need to get together as a group, not 5 board members. I'm not saying that we don't want to do this, because we do, but we need help. We can't do it all ourselves. The more people that go out there and say something, the better off we're gonna be. So if you're not happy with our funding, our state funding, I'm not either. We need to talk about it, and we need to address it with people that can fix it. I'm saddened to hear, really, and that's one of the main reasons I'm talking, I'm saddened to hear about community members talking down to people who disagree with the levy and vice versa. It's sad. We should all be allowed to have our voices heard, period. I don't care if you don't want it, or if you don't want it, that's fine, that's your opinion. But we all need to have our voices heard. The problem that I see is that no matter what side you're on, the people are really slinging mud right now, saying a lot of bad things, telling people to boycott businesses. I can guarantee you that people have said boycott the car wash because I have a school levy sign out in front of my business. It's the only political sign I've ever put out there. My stepdad, if he wanted to put a sign out there, I'd tell him no. If my best friend wanted to put a sign out there, I'd tell him no. That's how much I am passionate about this levy. So if I lose business for it, guess what? I lose business. Let me see here. I recently spoke to someone that was against this proposed levy. This is the second time that I actually talked to them. And I was just explaining to him as a business owner what I look at. And he responded right away, raised his voice. He says, wait a blank minute, fill in the blanks. And I looked right at him and I said, there's no reason for you to raise your voice. There's no reason for you to cuss. We're 2 adults having a conversation. You may disagree with what I feel. I may disagree with what you feel. But at the end of the day, we're allowed to have these conversations and we don't need to raise our voices. Basically, guys, if you're for this levy or you're against this levy, slinging mud is not going to do you any good. Somebody just posted, put an ad, a half-page ad in a newspaper about the teachers' salaries. A no-context ad about the teachers' salaries. What does that mean? All it's doing is trying to create dissension. They also took copies of this ad, made copies, put free on them, and took them to local businesses to hand out to people. I know that sounds bad, but guess what? At the end of the day, that's probably good. And I know you're saying, why? It's because they're slinging mud, and it's ticking off community members. If you're on the fence, and you see something like that, boy, that was dirty. I might go out and vote yes for this right now. So my point is, stop slinging mud. We all have our opinions. In closing, I want to say that I want to see the school levy succeed because our kids and our grandkids will then succeed. If kids succeed, people stay in the community. They work, they live, they support local businesses and civic organizations helping our community thrive. We were all provided an opportunity to be in DECA, sports, FFA, etc., because our parents and our grandparents sacrificed for us. It's time for us to stand up and sacrifice that coffee, whatever it is, sacrifice for our kids and our grandkids. Thank you very much.
Rick?
I'm just curious, if you're a Wauseon grad alum, could you stand up for me? Thank you.
Okay, so we do have our co-chair, Hugo Barajas. He actually did make it to the meeting. So we're actually going to start with a basic question. If you guys have had a chance to look at the frequently asked questions, we did pass out a few of them, but if you haven't had a chance to look at it yet, it is available on the WauseonLevy.com page, and it is a living document. It's constantly changing. You'll notice that at the very last page, there's actually an FAQ at WauseonIndians.org, where if you have questions after this meeting and you still have it and you're like, oh my gosh, I should have asked, go to that email, send us that question, and we will add it to this list. Okay? So let's start with question number 1. Troy, why is this levy needed?
Thank you, Josie. So it is question 1 on your handout. So, and I'll go into some detail. So the federal government and the state government, since 2016, it's a benchmarking date, have reduced our funds. You can see there by about $1 million. That's a regular occurrence from the federal and state government. At the state level, our funding has been flat funded since 2019. So here in 2020, all school districts in Ohio are functioning with the same state income that the governor and the legislators felt everyone needed in 2019. So that's the first piece, is the reduction of federal and state funding. The other part is that the district has not asked the community for new money since 2011. So if you think about that, that was a property tax in 2011, and so that property tax that the voters approved in 2011, all the way to 2022, is still collecting at the same level it collected in 2011. Okay? Dave can go into much more detail than I can, but it's House Bill 920, which says that as property values fluctuate, the collection remains the same for the school district. So even though I've seen an increase in my property tax here in Wauseon, that doesn't necessarily mean that the school district has received more money because of that flat line House Bill 920. So the second reason is because the district has not gone back to the voters for new money since 2011. So same type of thing, the amount of money coming in 2011 is the same amount of money coming in 2022. And then we all know costs have increased. Our fuel costs have increased by 50%. We usually spend about $20,000 to fill our diesel fuel tank. We now spend about $30,000. All right there, Dave, with that number. And so the cost of soap, the cost of paper towels, the cost of doing business is more expensive. So those are the reasons. But another important fact is that in the NWOAL, I don't think we laid these forms out, so we'll put these on the table over there at the end so you can take one. But if you look at how local communities support their school districts, so there's 4 types of funding: federal, state, local, and some miscellaneous. That local piece, in Wauseon in the tax year 2021, we supported our students at a level of $3,484 per student, when the average of the NWAL schools support their students at $6,666.74. And even the highest, Patrick Henry, at $10,849.19. So I say this every time. I'm a Wauseon guy, lived here since I was 4 years old, went to school for all 13 years here, decided to bring my career back here to Wauseon on 2 different occasions. And I'm back here, and I have 3 kids that graduated. I graduated, my brother, my sister, my mom, my dad. It just goes on. I don't like being last in anything I do. I don't even like to be second. And to think that in the NWOAL, we are last in the amount of money as a community we collect for our students, I'm not for that. I just think we can do better as a community. And people have said, well, what about the past? What has happened in the past? Like Larry said, there's nothing we can do about the past. Our board in the past did a great job of providing this community with a high level of education for a little bit of money in comparison to the other school districts. So we should all be saying to ourselves, hey, we got a great deal since 2011 till now. And then let's get this levy, let's get it to the voters, let's get information, let's be informed, let's go to the polls and make informed decisions. So I'll put this form over there on the table. Dave, is there anything I missed as to the whys there? Okay, thanks.
Okay, next question. Excuse me. What reductions have already been made? Provider Dave? Okay.
So that is number 7. If you move over to number 7. So I'm gonna run through these so you can see them there. Since 2019, reduced all budgets. So when in 2019, Dave is the treasurer, myself, we sat with all of our principals, our directors, and our supervisors, and we gave them $0 to run their budget for the next school year. We said, show us what you need to run your program for a year. As opposed to saying, hey, we're just gonna give you the same amount of money you had last year. Or we're gonna give you a 10% increase on what you did last year. So we started at 0, it's called zero-based budgeting. We asked everyone to come and show. So our budgets, we were able to immediately knock off about $67,000 just through that process. We've reduced 1 bus driver position. We reduced 1 human resource position, 1 secretary position. Actually, that is 1 secretary position. 2 administrative positions. It says 1 there. We just recently, and we didn't update this, that's 2. Our EMIS coordinator went to another district, and we absorbed that position and took one position and gave them 2 jobs. So that's 2 administrators. Our COVID coordinator was the other position. When our COVID coordinator resigned, we took those duties on ourselves. I took some of the duty on, the principals took some on, the secretaries took some on, the teachers, custodians, and we just shared it. Mrs. Kaufman, our school nurse, we just spread the wealth of being the COVID coordinator, which I'm not sure is something that's that great a thing, but we needed it. So food service position, we reduced the food service position. We reduced the cost of preschool by bringing that back and running it ourselves. We used to have the Northwest Ohio Educational Service Center run it, and we were able to run it at a less expensive, with this amount, at a cheaper price for the same amount of service. The the bus drivers negotiated a no raise at negotiations last year, and our Wauseon Education Association negotiated or reduced the increase to their 1.9% increase last year. And then if you date back, Larry Zimmerman talked about this, if you date back to 2011, at those reductions, industrial technology hasn't been replaced, middle school family and consumer science, and that hasn't been replaced, and middle school technology, and that hasn't been replaced. So that's an example of the reductions. In addition to that, this has occurred since 2005 for sure, when I was a principal at the primary school. Mr. Robinson, whenever a position came open, either by a retirement or a resignation, he always said, do we still need it? Do we still need that position? Do we still need it like it looks? Can it be reduced? Can it be absorbed? Does it need to stay exactly the same? We still do that. We did that the 10 years I was here. They did it the 4 years I was gone, and we've done it the past 3 years I've been here with every single position. And that's how we've reduced some positions. It doesn't make it easier. One person's doing more work, or a few people are doing more work, but that's what we're doing to reduce costs already.
Thanks, Troy. So I am dressed in my post-game umpire gear, okay? Just got off the field. I would much rather umpire a game at Wauseon in the freezing cold weather like I did today than not to have to do that next year, okay? Easy decision, okay? But one of the big questions that I've been hearing as the chairman is, okay, so we passed this levy, everybody's happy, but what does the future look like? What are we going to do to stay fiscally responsible after the passage of the levy? That's question number 8 on your frequently asked questions. Troy, Dave, you guys got all the answers?
Thanks, Hugo. So, if you look at number 8, you'll see some of the pieces that the board has already begun to talk about. So, one of the pieces is what I just said. The piece of whenever someone resigns or retires, we look at that position and decide what we need to do with that. The Auditor of State's office every year comes in and audits our books. Every single year, without exception. They come in and they audit our books. And then they post those audits out on their website. So Dave, can you just tell us a little bit about when they come in, what kind of success we've had with those audits?
We've had a clean audit every year that I've been here, 5.5 years. When I came in, they were finishing up an audit, and we just finished our last one. They're usually in here 3 to 4 weeks. They virtually audit every part of the organization. We have enough in federal grants that they do a single audit just on our federal grants. We pass with flying colors. They usually get us for 2 things, and they're just comments. They're not bad comments. They're just comments that we should have a finance committee in place, which we don't have, but we plan. That's one of the plans that we have to keep the district fiscally responsible. Troy has plans to implement a finance committee. And the other thing that they get is a segregation of duties with our athletics department, but we have the best athletic director in the state of Ohio, so I have no concern about that. and we're implementing an online payment system that is going to take care of that problem. So that is going to go away. Other than that, we have had a clean audit every year that I've been here, and as far back as you can look.
So in addition, the auditors are always available for us to ask questions, for us to do. We've had them in when we've had questions to say, hey, can this funding be used for this expense? And they'll tell us yes, or they'll tell us no on that. The finance committee that Dave was talking about, that is something that the board has begun conversations about. That is ultimately the board's decision of what a finance committee will look like. Our 5 board members will determine that, but we're committed to having some form of a finance committee what it will look like and what that group will look at will be determined by the board, but we're committed to that. And then the other thing we want to do is just twice a year, because you can come to every board meeting and hear and see the financial summary for the month. That happens every board meeting, every month, 12 times throughout the school year, so you can come see that. But if you don't want to come see that, we are going to, during a board meeting, we're going to have kind of a State of the Union address or State of the District address about finances. We're going to do that once a semester in the future, in addition to those monthly, give a little bit more detail. You can also look at our 5-year forecast at any time you want. It's published on the ODE's website, on the auditor's website, and on our website. So it's always there, so you can always look at that and see what our finances look 5 years out. But that's the answer to number 8.
Thank you, Troy. I'm actually going to jump ahead to number 39. The question is, can a public school student attend Wauseon schools and participate in extracurricular activities at another school?
Thank you. So, for reference, it is the Ohio High School Athletic Association bylaw 4-3-1. And what that says is that a student who attends Wauseon, I'm going to use this for example, a student who attends Wauseon schools cannot go to another school district and participate in an extracurricular activity. So you cannot attend Wauseon schools and go to Napoleon to be on their speech team, or attend Wauseon schools and go to Archbold to be on the golf team. If you attend Wauseon schools, you have to participate in Wauseon schools' extracurricular activities. If Wauseon schools does not have extracurricular activities and you attend Wauseon school, it's the same. You can't go play a sport or a club or an activity someplace else. As of right now, that is bylaw 4-3-1. Okay?
So the next question right after that is number 40. How will services for students with special needs be affected by a failed levy?
So this is a new question that we added to frequently asked questions. The co-chair shared that this document gets updated on a regular basis. You can see some of the dates on the back. 4 or 5 different dates where updates have been made. Prior to 4-6, the committee we were not keeping track of those updates, but number 40 was a question that came in via frequently asked questions. So if you go to the Levy Committee's website and you're on the frequently asked question document, or you look on the back here, you can see an email address that you can type in and send a question to. And then there's a team of us who look at those questions. So special education or students with disabilities are just as an important population of our students as any. Okay, so I don't want anyone to walk away from here and say, oh my goodness, Troy Armstrong said we spend too much money on special ed students. That is not what I said. That's not what I'm going to say. What I want you to hear me say is that the question was, there is a reduction in special education services if the levy fails. We plan to reduce one of our intervention specialists. That's a trained, licensed teacher to be able to teach students with disabilities. So what does that mean if we reduce a teacher? It means the primary school, Wauseon Primary School, will have one less intervention specialist. Currently, our intervention specialists are able to service students with disabilities, identified students with disabilities, as well as students who are at risk, okay? So are at-risk learners. With a reduction of intervention specialists, those at-risk students aren't going to get serviced. The focus will have to be the identified students, because that's what the state law says. Those are the students that an intervention specialist would serve. So the failure of the levy means a reduction of an intervention specialist, and due to the numbers, the population at the primary school, kindergarten, first, second, we also have preschool, but there are different rules for preschool, so we're going to carve preschool out for right now, but kindergarten, first, second, there are lower identified students, lower number of identified students, because they're just getting into school. We're just learning about their students. They're just learning their letter sounds and early math, early reading, okay? So there would be a reduction of an intervention specialist there. We also contract service with the Northwest Ohio Educational Service Center in Archbold. Every school district is associated with the service center. We're associated with the Northwest Ohio Educational Service Center. So the contracted services, some of those we're going to pull back into the district if the levy were to fail. So some of those tasks, administrative tasks, so if you look at the list, it goes on and on. But for example, some of the supervisory pieces, compliance pieces about preschool, we would pull that back in. We would we'd add that to the caseload of Mrs. Grimm. We'd add that to the caseload of Mr. Young, and it would get added to the caseload of Stacy Kessler, who serves as the secretary of both student services and instructional services, and also then the two secretaries, Mrs. Weber and Mrs. Smith at the primary school. We would absorb those into the school. So those are the types of things that will happen. We'll look at those contracted services and see if we can do them at a lesser amount internally, or we may even have to contract somewhere else where we might be able to get the service at less money. Not sure exactly, because we haven't begun to look at those contracted services, but they're very specialized. Occupational therapists are licensed. Physical therapists are licensed. Audiologists are licensed. Adaptive physical education teachers are licensed. I can go on and on and on. So those would be pieces that might be absorbed back in. And again, all these supports will be evaluated and determine what we can take on ourselves. Our multiple disability classrooms in the district. So we house, Wauseon Schools houses the multiple disability classrooms for all of Fulton County. So the Fulton County schools have the option, if they have a student with multiple disabilities, to send them to Wauseon Schools. So an Evergreen student may transport a student here to Wauseon, and then we house the multiple disability classrooms. Back when this facility was built, those other 6 school districts in Fulton County pitched in some finances so we could expand this building a little bit to accommodate those county-wide classrooms. So we are the location for a long time. That was a 50-year contract that was entered into back in approximately 2009. So there won't be any changes to the multiple disability classroom environment. Dave, can you kind of talk about maintenance of effort and what that means?
So some of you have heard me talk about our maintenance of effort requirements that are placed on us by the Ohio Department of Education. And we had a question, I believe it was last week, about how are you going to cut services and maintain this maintenance of effort requirement through ODE? Well, it's simple. We have to file with ODE and let them know that, hey, we've had to reduce positions. So our maintenance of effort, where we are currently at $3,685,000 that we're required to continue to invest in our special ed population. If that would drop by $100,000 because we cut services, we just have to file with Ohio Department of Education, explain to them why we're cutting services and what's happening, and then they either give us the thumbs up or the thumbs down. And as long as it makes sense, they're going to approve that. It's a fairly common thing as if a school has to cut services. So that's how that would work.
Some great answers to those difficult questions. And I've always stated from the first day that I began this campaign is that we're just information people. We just want you to get the information, and then you make a decision based on the information that we give you. We're not here to decide this or this. We're just going to give you the information, and you make the best decision possible. So you've had a chance, hopefully, to look at these frequently asked questions. So we're going to open up the floor for some more clarification on some of these questions. So I know some of you guys are probably itching to ask a question here. Is anybody? If not, I'll ask one myself. I have one that I can ask Troy or Dave. So there's the traditional income tax, and then there's the earned income tax. And the school board decided on the earned income tax. What exactly is earned income, Dave? What are some of the incomes that will not be taxed? How will the tax be collected? When will we start seeing it? Et cetera, et cetera.
So the difference between an earned income tax and traditional is a traditional income tax is kind of termed as an all tax. It taxes basically everything: retirement income, investment income. Neither of these tax corporations. People ask that often. But an earned income tax just taxes the money that somebody makes when they're out there physically earning a living. So what it's called in the bean counter world that I grew up in is passive income versus earned income. So if you've got an investment sitting in an investment account and it's earning money for you, that's just passive income. You're not doing anything physically to earn that income. If you're running a farm and you're bringing money in and earning that income, then you would be taxed on that. Now, if you're in a partnership income is taxed on the partner level because those partners are not allowed to take a W-2 out of that partnership. So all W-2 income is taxed, but partnerships are taxed because the partners can't take a W-2. If you have a sole proprietorship where you're just out cutting grass for folks, you're out there physically earning that money. So you're going to be taxed on those earnings. The other thing that, retirement income, Social Security, pensions, any type of retirement income that you're bringing in is not taxed because it's considered passive income. If you happen to lose your job, your unemployment income would not be taxed, okay? So there are just a lot of scenarios, but that's essentially it. You asked something else. Yes, sir.
I'll be real honest with you. This is why I voted no the first go round. Okay, my wife and I own a C Corp,
Okay.
an S Corp, 2 LLCs. Okay, so when I heard income tax, every red light in the world went off. Trust me, I mean like every. So that information coming forth, being well explained up front, that this was only going to be on a W-2 income. So our corporations aren't taxed, our rental income from businesses aren't taxed. It's just that income alone is a whole different picture than when someone hears income tax. Especially someone sitting in the middle of all the different things that we have going on. And so, when someone yells income tax, we hide it. I mean, I'll be real honest with you, we're already getting whacked on the other side of this pretty quick.
I worked in the corporate world for 20 years, so I know what you're talking about.
We're in all the corporate statuses that you can be in the world, and operate those businesses like that. My wife came home from her last meeting and said, "You can breathe." It's just your income, because when you start looking at it, those numbers are scary. I mean, I had a real freak out when she came home like, "Oh, Wauseon income tax." Oh, we need to move. I mean, it was one of those things that it was I mean, had I known this all that I know today, the first go around, the vote would have been pretty easy then. But,
First of all, thank you for coming and educating
Well,
yourself.
you know,
We appreciate it.
I think that's the bottom line, is if you live in the community and you have questions and stuff, get out there, educate yourself, go find out, go.
the other thing I don't know how many of you in here have employees? I'm just curious. Okay, so I'm going to throw this out there. I've had employees for going on 15 years. I was an employee for 30 years. And I just Googled the average income of a teacher in the state of Ohio. Okay? I can tell you right now, not one of my employees will come teach kids in Wauseon for what they're getting paid. There's no way. I mean, it's not a staggering amount. I know that somebody said, well, this teacher makes, well, if you hire a college-educated person with a master's degree or several degrees, they're going to walk in the door and want 6 figures day one. Period. That's where we're at in today's work economy. So, I have a sister-in-law that teaches here. I don't know what she makes here, how long she's been here, but she's a very educated individual and deserves a fair salary. Because if you're not willing to pay her, I guarantee you someone else is. So, keeping those quality people. How many of you are trying to find a better job or in the job market or have people walking in for interviews and what their, what they came from and what their expected pay is for the education they hold or the experience they hold, those both carry a huge price tag today. I mean, so, what these teachers are making, ain't no way, I don't have an employee that would give up what they have to come do this for any stretch. So, that's the other thing, getting out there, Larry, the people complaining about the teacher's education. Well, if you've got that kind of education, corporate America is wanting to pull you out of that school and get you someplace where you can make double the salary you would make.
That's happening right now.
There's teachers who are going to leave you, no different than the medical field. They both kind of run together there. So throwing that stuff out there, people that kind of education, they should make that kind of money.
If you look at as a business owner, it's very hard to hire people. Period. It's very hard to hire people and expect them to do something for a low income. All right, and what we're asking our teachers to do, and that's the thing that keeps getting thrown out there, is they should freeze their salaries. I'm not going to debate that. I'm not going to argue that. But bottom line is when we have teachers and administrators that are leaving our district, bus drivers that are leaving our district because they can go to the next town over and make $4 or $5 an hour more, we're going to lose them. People, I tried to explain this to a gal that works for me today. I said, in business, if you're going to leave and you're going to better yourself in a position, you don't take you don't take a horizontal move. You don't go backwards in life. And if we lose teachers because we're asking them to freeze their salaries, we're not going to get people to come here because we're not paying them enough as it is. Period. Your idea of getting better in your life is to move up, not to move straight across, not to go backwards. And it's a sad thing that we keep hearing, freeze salaries. I understand, but I had this person that was arguing with me. He says, you own a business, what would you do? I said, the exact thing that I did 3 months ago, and I ticked off customers. I raised my prices. I raised my prices because I couldn't afford to pay my people and couldn't afford to pay my bills with all of the increases. Guys, we give out dog treats, and I know this is going off on a tangent, but we give out dog treats at the carryout, okay? We buy dog treats for $1.50 a box, and we hand out dog treats to people that come in with dogs. You know how much a box of dog treats are today? $6. Our plastic bags that we hand out to customers with sodas in them, whatever, we paid $0.50 a piece for these plastic bags. I just ordered 10,000 of them, cost me 7 cents a piece. And we want our teachers to stay where they're at. Everything is going up, unfortunately. That's the life we're in right now. And God willing, it'll go back someday. But right now, we can't just continually beat up our teachers. Guys, they're going to leave, and then we won't have teachers to teach our kids.
This is coming from the guy who's not a good public speaker, but
At the end of the day, when you own a business, you have to look at the big picture. And the school isn't a whole lot different. Yeah, there's different constraints and there's different rules and all that. But at the end of the day, what makes us successful is our employees. And if we lose our employees, we're nothing. We're really not. I mean, we have awesome employees that bust their bums to help us create money and value our customers. And I mean, without them, we're nothing.
And our employees get a piece of that back because if we're successful, they're successful. And this school and this town.
So we need to treat our teachers the same,
Yeah,
I guess,
I
is
don't-
where I'm at
I'm
with
not
it.
begrudging the teachers for making a good wage. I want the best teachers. I want to.
Thank
I don't
you.
want the bottom of the barrel coming here to teach.
Can you get on Facebook for me tonight?
I don't need to win a popularity contest. I don't know if you want these folks or not. Because I really don't care.
Can I back up the bestest one? I do, you made a good point that I forgot, is that rental income is also not taxed in this earned income tax model. It's considered passive income.
That information last go around, other than just that, big overwhelming word of income tax, was my, like, whoa. I mean,
Well, thank you for being honest and
well,
sharing.
it was, I looked at the point and said, well, this isn't gonna work. You know, I mean, that's a pretty good hit. You know, and I'll throw this out there for everyone. It's not that you were asking for 2%, okay? It's that you're asking for 2% on top of the 30, whatever percent the federal government gets and whatever percent all the state gets, and then you look at your income at the end of the year and go, wow, we did all this for 43.65% of our gross. So that when it's a cumulative thing, and when it's in a local tax comes to you like this, you're like, wow, this is, oof. I mean,
You really got to make sure you educate yourself.
yeah, and we have, and we're tickled that you guys are doing this, having this all come forward prior to the first, having it really out there so that people knew that this was just going to be on that portion of your income was a big difference for us. Very big difference.
Thanks for sharing. Dave?
Can I piggyback off the salary?
Yes.
The salary thing. You know, this is something that's been bothering me. I'm not sure what's the purpose of posting teacher salary to the public, other than I think they want to get across the idea that teachers are overpaid. All right, so let me put this into perspective. I taught here for 35 years. I retired 8 years ago. When I started in 1979, my salary was $10,200. We got a 7% increase, which is basic. We got that for a lot of years. So 1979, the increase on the base was $700. 2% on $38,000 now, $760. So for 43 years, you know, we've gone up, our base salary's gone up basically $28,000. So if you do the math, that's a little less than $700 per year on the base in the last 43 years. My wife taught in Swanton, so as a comparison, she taught, didn't coach anything. My teaching salary and my coaching salary was less for most of our career than just her teaching salary in Swanton. I'm pretty well connected to a teacher here at the high school, an administrator at Liberty Center, and I know if said teacher at the high school taught in Liberty Center, she'd be making $10,000 more than she's making now. So teachers in Wauseon are not overpaid. You know, so we need to get off that and focus on what's important and take teacher salary and staff salary out of the equation altogether.
To speak to what Dave said, I taught at Liberty. I took a pay cut to come back here because this is where I grew up. This is where I graduated from. This school has done amazing things for me. It's done amazing things to my kids, and I know that we have a lot of support, so I thank you that are here to support that, because these teachers, especially the ones that are here right now, we put so much time and effort to make sure that these kids have the very best education and the best life experience. I tell my third graders, I want them to learn as much as they can, but I want them to go out and be the best people that they can possibly be, so this community and this world can be a better place. Just so you guys know that.
I wanted to say what Hope just said. She said it way better than I could have ever. But my point is, teachers stay in Wauseon and come to Wauseon. Administrators, teachers, classified staff, bus drivers, food servers, they all come here and stay here because this is the best place in Northwest Ohio to be. I came back twice. They had me back. I'm so happy. But I came back twice. This is the best place, and our teachers and our staff, they just pour their hearts out for our kids every single day, and they're not overpaid. I totally agree with that.
Well, I want to speak on behalf of a place where teachers can't speak with separation of church and state. However, I can speak separated because I've been a minister in this community since 1996. And for the Christian community represented in this vote, so that you can give encouragement to Christians. And if you're not a Christian and you're supporting the levy, you're making us look bad, folks, because commends and kudos to that. But I want to give you, encouragement to people in churches that says, I'm not for the levy. Because I want to give you a perspective to the Christian perspective, which is, I'm sure, over 26% of this vote in our culture here, probably even more. Jesus addresses a situation where he has to pay taxes in Matthew 17. And in that situation, he says to Peter, who do the kings gather taxes from? Their children or others? And he said, they don't tax their own kids. They take it from others. And he says, all right then, Peter, I want you to go to the lake and go get the fish for the 2 drachma tax, and you'll find 4 drachmas. Pay your taxes and mine to them and to the Romans. They weren't very nice, so this is not even going for a good cause, like our school levy. And he pulls the coin out of the fish's mouth. What's the point of what Jesus taught? Is if you're paying taxes as a Christian, God is going to supernaturally supply. He says, why? So that we don't offend them. How do we look as Christians if we're stingy? How do we look as Christians if we're afraid that God's not going to provide? And again, I said, I'm only speaking to the Christian culture in our community here, to believers, is the promise, if you're a Christian, is one, if you want to be a witness to this community, then God's going to supply you if you're generous. He loves a generous giver. The other thing is, if you're afraid, he still promises that he'll provide specifically in what area? Taxes. Now, I want to tell you, I am not campaigning because I got a horse in a race. It is true, Becca loses her job if it goes down. But that's not, if she wasn't in it, I would do it because of God. I would do it because we've got to bring God to our community. There's nothing greater to invest in the lives of our kids. And so with that said, let's keep God in this community, and let's support our teachers and our schools, not to mention the future of our kids and our witness for who we are.
Thanks, Vic. With the passage of the levy in May, will our school taxes be at the highest level ever?
I'm not sure what question that is, but it's in your frequently asked questions. Number 6. So if you go, this question was posed to me a couple of months, 2 or 3 months ago, and most of the questions that you've heard me answer that are in this frequently asked questions have actually been asked. So I had a community member say that if this levy passes, we'll be paying taxes at the highest level we've ever paid in the history of this school. So that prompted me to being the bean counter that I am. I just researched, and I was able to go back to 1998, and I found that local funding from Wauseon residents made up 43% of our total revenue. If you remember, Mr. Armstrong said a little while ago that we get federal money, we get state money, we get local money, and we get some miscellaneous revenue. So from the local community in 1998, it was 43% was coming from local taxpayers. By 2008, just pre-recession, we were at 36.7% coming from our local taxes. Fast forward to 2021, or 2020, that percentage had dropped to 26.7%. And that's why this number is sitting at $3,484 per student versus the average of $6,661 across the NWAL. If you take Wauseon out of that equation, it's $7,100 and some dollars on the average. So to say that taxes are the highest they've ever been, that's just not a true statement. They're actually much, much lower than they've ever been. With the passage of this levy, we're not even going to get to pre-recession levels of just right around 36%. I don't even know that we're going to get to 36%. So we're at 36.7. We're still nowhere near the highest level that has ever been paid in Wauseon.
Thank you, Dave. All right, so number 13. Who will be taxed? I think we kind of covered it. All right, so let's move on. I think that that's about all the questions we have here. Again, we're going to open up the floor. If anyone has any comments or other questions that they want to make now, please feel free to do that at this time. But you can still go to the FAQ at wauseonindians.org and submit any questions that you... Why are you shaking your head? Oh. No, it says... I'm right. Wauseonindians.org. Yes. Or you can just go FAQ at wauseonindians.org. Email. Right? Right? Okay. Either way, please send us your questions. And thank you very much for coming. What's the next one? Oh, yes. Well, the next meeting we have is on Thursday at St. Caspar's, and it is in Spanish. So if you know anyone in your community who would like this information, my brother and I are going to do our best to translate it the whole time. And then after that, the next meeting we have is on April 26th at 7 p.m. at the True North. Okay? Yes?
What is the percentage of Wauseon school employees that actually live in the district that's going to have to pay this tax also?
Good question.
That's 62% of the staff in Wauseon that live in the Wauseon community. 62%.
And a lot of the teachers who live out of the district live in other districts that have an income tax, and so they are currently paying their Wauseon salary income tax to Liberty Center, Napoleon, Swanton, Delta, Evergreen, Fayette. Archibald doesn't have an income tax yet. Is that right?
Yes, so
unless you live in Archibald, Wauseon teachers are paying an income tax to the communities they live in.
So to reiterate that, so of this, in Fulton County, 5 of the 7 school districts have both property taxation and income taxation. Wauseon and Archibald do not. Wauseon's on the ballot on May 3rd. In the 4-county area, 19 of the 23 school districts have an income tax and property taxation. And in Ohio, 210 school districts have an income tax in addition to property tax. And income tax can be traditional or earned, and Dave explained what earned is.
Larry, you spoke about that House bill, is it 920? So, meaning that property taxes, and I'm just asking, say your house was built in 2012 or 2013. Property taxes that would be gathered for that address, am I understanding that it would be paid as though there was no $300,000 house setting on there, if that was the case? You see what I mean? So if it was, you brought it in at a certain level.
Construction within there is.
I'm not sure which questions, but you
So
would pay property tax.
if I had a piece of property that I owned in 2011, and in 2013, so I was being taxed then at that rate of what bare ground. In 2013, I put a $300,000 house on there. Would the school see any of that money, or would they still see it as though that was a bare piece of ground?
Kind of.
Giddy up.
I always have these wishy-washy answers. So the way it works is, my son is currently building a home down in the Columbus area. And so as he continues his construction, lucky him, his property taxes start to ratchet up as they make progress on that home. So eventually he will get up to that max property value, and he will, and they have an income tax, by the way, and he will pay the full value of property tax to that school on that home. Now we have one emergency levy in place, so that collects a flat amount of money. So every time a new property goes up, that flat amount gets divvied up between everybody. So if we had 200 homes and now we have 201, that money was divided between 200 homes, now it's divided between 201, and it's still the same amount of money. We have inside millage, so as property values go up, that creeps up a little bit. We do receive a little more money for that. It's not a lot of money.
But I was just making more about that one specific levy,
Yeah.
that if it was in a piece of dirt, now it's got a $300,000 house on it, are they getting, in that original levy, are they getting any money for that house, or is it
Yes.
still the property?
No, you get more money for that
Okay.
home.
Okay, good.
Yep. Every time there's new construction.
Okay.
The schools do benefit from that.
Even with the emergency levy?
Not from the emergency
That's
levy.
what I was trying to
Yeah,
get by.
so the money that the new money we got in 2011, it was for a fixed dollar amount, about $835,000. It's still collecting that. If you take that number from 2011 and adjust it for inflation, we should be getting over $1.5 million for that levy if it was able to be adjusted, but it's not. That's the way those levies work. So we're operating off of an $835,000 number that was passed 11 years ago, which adjusted for inflation should be closer to $1.6 million, I believe, almost double what we're collecting today.
Thanks, everybody, for sharing the information. I did not know the levies were stuck at that level. I appreciate that. I was curious, one of the previous meetings, Mr. Buller, you talked about the bond issues, possibly the bonds maturing in 2023, 2025, and 2034. That stuck out in my mind as I was talking with somebody. As these bonds come off, is that property tax going to decrease?
Yes, and it's Mr. Fleming, but that's okay. I know, there's a Tomberg holder in here somewhere. I don't want to be confused with him. He calls me Dan. No, you're fine. You're fine. I just want you to know in case you ever need to talk to me, that's who you contact. So the bonds, we just paid one off in 2021, and the way those were structured, the payments adjust so that the payment stays kind of the same over time. But in 2023, I believe it is, our bond payments are going to drop about $750,000. Okay, they ratchet back up a little bit, but property owners will see a reduction in their property taxes because of that bond coming off. I don't know that you'll be able to identify it, but you should see it. And then in 2034, when that drops, the bond payments are about $1.1 million. So when that bond gets paid off in 2034, then everybody will see a reduction in property taxes at that time as well.
Does that answer? Yeah.
Anybody else? Some thoughts? Okay, I'll close with this. I don't know if you guys noticed, but there were some kids in the gym practicing. Those are recreation kids. If the levy doesn't pass, then the school closes, like immediately the school day is over, nobody can come in the building. That's going to affect the recreation programs in the city also. Just so everybody knows. That's just a fact. Yes?
Can you address why that is? Like why, I think I know why the school would close at 4 o'clock. But can you answer, you know what I mean? Like why, it's not a punishment, it's a cost savings, correct?
Yes, so a failed levy means the district is gonna focus on the instructional day. Because number one, we're here to educate children. Extracurriculars are part of that well-rounded education. But if the levy were to fail, we're gonna focus on instruction. Kids will come to school at the beginning of the day, they'll go through their instructional day, and at the end, they'll go home. Buildings will close, and we'll turn the lights off and kind of scoot everybody as much as possible out. We're not gonna tell teachers they have to go home at 3:30, because if you know teachers and you drive around the parking lot, they're here all the time. Custodians and sweepers are here till midnight. Food service is in at 6 in the morning. So you'll see cars in the parking lot from employees, but the building will close. It'll be cost savings. We'll get our lights down, get our heat down, not have to have our custodians taking care of the gym after a program or set up in here for a program. So it'll be a focus on the instructional day. And with Park and Rec, or with the Wauseon Recreation Program, Hugo and Matt and I have had conversations for months, because the school, we cooperate with one another. The school just opens our buildings, the district just opens our buildings to Park, to Wauseon Recreation for the wrestling program, basketball program, adult volleyball. The list goes on and on and on. And whenever I call upon the rec department for some help, we had a freezer go down and we didn't have any place to put food. And I said, hey, got an empty freezer? We can bring some food too? Yeah, let's get plugged in and let's get some food in it. So there's a cooperation between the rec department and the school district, but that won't be able to continue because it'll be a financial piece.
It's a good question. So, all right, I'll close with this. I don't know who did that wonderful little layout over there with the water and the snacks, right? I want you all to go home and grab some and... No, that's it, David, done. Come on. Dave's got one more thing for everybody.
So I wanted to piggyback on the extracurriculars because there's been a lot of misinformation floating around about how much money we make on athletics, okay? It's astonishing. So we just finished an audit, and as part of that audit, the auditors calculated how much it costs us to run all of our extracurricular activities. That number is $894,000, okay? So again, being the bean counter I am, I assumed, let's say that we were selling tickets to our events for, on average, $10 a piece. We'd have to sell 89,000 tickets to make $1. Okay? We're not doing that. That means that the average person, every single person in Wauseon would have to buy 12 tickets a year for 12 events to come up with 89,000 tickets sold. Well, we've got 1,800 students. Those students aren't going to be buying tickets. We got coaches and teachers that are running these programs. Those people aren't going to be buying tickets. So now you're up to, you know, how many tickets does the average citizen in Wauseon have to purchase in order for us to turn a profit in our athletics and extracurriculars? So it's $894,000 cost. We bring in about $256,000 in ticket sales. Now there's some, again, as always, you have to come in and talk to me and I can explain this to you, but we have a shortfall of about $500,000. And a shortfall is not a great term because I personally believe that these extracurriculars are every bit as important to these kids as this education that they're getting. So we invest an extra $500,000 plus into these kids for this extracurricular activity that's going to go away if we can't get this thing passed in May. So I just want to clear that up because we have someone that keeps saying that we're putting out inconsistent information. We have said consistently through this whole thing that the investment in these kids for these extracurriculars are about $500,000. So there's your number. Ticket sales are $256,000. The cost to run the programs are $894,000.
Is that just sports or all extracurricular?
It's all extracurricular. Yep.
It's non-speaker here.
Yeah, I don't like to speak. Piggybacking off of these extracurriculars off of sports. When I graduated high school, I was about this tall. No, he wasn't. I couldn't even give blood as a senior because I didn't weigh enough. Bottom line is what I'm trying to say is that there's been some talk about our, and I'm just going to say this, our wrestling, our athletic, what is that actually called? Athletic facility, okay? I know that this was addressed at the last one, but that money was all raised. It didn't cost the district a penny. I'm not tooting my own horn, but I put money into that. My wife put money into that, and I know so many other people that put money into that. And my point with this is that these extracurriculars and these sports, they build character, period. I have one of my sons that was Wauseon's first state champ in wrestling since 1984, 220, okay, big boy. And I remember watching Kevin Kreiner slam him into a wind fence out there as they're pouring concrete, because that's what they did. My point is this kid now is in construction. He's highly sought after because of his wrestling career. He is a hard worker, and they have made big-time construction companies, Miller Brothers, Nagels. I mean, he works for Underground Utilities. This owner of this company sought him out because of his work ethic that these guys in that wrestling community put him in. We can't afford to lose our extracurriculars. And it's DECA, it's any of those extracurriculars. We cannot afford to lose it, guys. We got to step up, get educated, and go vote, period.
Thanks, Larry.
Say anything else?
I'm afraid to say, does anybody else want to say anything? But thanks for coming. Yes, we got another comment here.
I would add that the businesses in our community benefit from fans coming, people driving
Oh,
out,
absolutely.
even in Wauseon. I mean, how many times did you go out to eat, or you stop at Walmart for your kids' extracurricular snacks or gas? You know, those things, it is for the students, but it does benefit the whole town to have people involved and coming from other communities.
Absolutely. I encourage you all to vote early. Yes.
Yes, I gotta say this. If we want to have our wonderful community that we have here, my older daughter lives in Ann Arbor, and she said Wauseon school system has always been super great in educating people, the students rather. And she said they've always had great schools. If we don't have great schools, who is going to come and move to Wauseon? Parents, when they're coming, moving, people move around, what is the first thing they check if they have children? What is the school system like? You don't have a good school system, you're gonna not come to a town. And we've had a good school system. And I would hate to see the activities stop, because what are the kids gonna do? I mean, it's heartbreaking. And that if they don't have a place to, some activity to keep them, they'll get in trouble. And we have enough trouble in the world right now. So, I mean, we don't wanna ruin Wauseon schools and have somebody say, well, don't go to Wauseon. They have no activities. And you know, I've talked to other people that have gone through that, and they said, well, if we don't have it, my kids are going to private school or we're moving. So education, your school system, affects how your community is going to grow. I mean, it really does, and maybe some of you never thought of it that way, but I have seen how younger people talk, and you know, you want your kids in a good school system, and we got it here. Let's keep it.
Thank you for that. It's a great note to end on. Thanks for coming. Vote early. The polls are open.